It's good evening from London News here in Melbourne. I'm now introducing some people from around Australia and, of course, John, who is the head of the International Common Law Court in the UK. We have Brian from Newcastle, Stephanie from Sydney, and Anne from Melbourne. And I'm in the snow in Melbourne, although it's not real, although the temperature outside is only 12 and I'm not really happy. So good evening, John, and everybody. Anybody?
Good evening.
Hi.
Okay, John, can you tell us what's happening? We're almost, I'll just tell John, we're actually, Anne and Brian are from New South Wales. Alex, which is our chairman, was caught up in the trains on the way home from Melbourne. There was a bit of a protest, which was a bit of a washout with the weather. He is absent, and I have to apologise for John. For Alex, he'll be very disappointed. They're going to get the New South Wales branch going, and of course, Anne and Alex, myself. So, can you? Anybody got a question, or do you want to tell us? Actually, probably better still, John. You're raring to go there. You can tell us what's actually happening with 100 and something countries at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, we actually had someone else sign up to the Common Law Court. Which means now that we're sitting with people who have declared their births from 101 different countries now worldwide, which is great. Which confirms that this is applicable to everyone. Now, while people obviously stay within a certain landmass or a land area, which is great, and they're protective of their own sovereignty in their own area, this is the principles which they're looking to defend just now is applicable elsewhere, whether or not you're using the terminology common law, natural law, universal law, even God's law or the Creator's law. It's all exactly the same. The principles are the same for each one, and everyone's fighting the same issues. But it's only by standing together we can actually get any further along the road to rectifying these problems that we're currently dealing with. We had yesterday we actually served some paperwork on the relevant individuals, which you may be interested in hearing. Yeah. The premiers and the Prime Minister in Australia were all served with papers yesterday. A copy of this is up on the Common Law Court site. We also served individuals, the relevant president in premiers in New Zealand. We've done the same with the UK. Now the UK is currently split up into separate governments as well, similar to your own states. We have Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales, but we also have the Isle of Man, because they have a separate government as well. I believe it's the oldest government in the world, but they also have a separate judicial system as well. Now, we've also notified the Premier in the Republic of Ireland. We've also notified the relevant parties from the States and Canada, and I think there's 13 there. And we've also notified all the senators in America, so that's 100 senators. They've received a copy of this notice. Now, the aim of doing this is to assist everyone, yourselves included, with the position that they're obviously trying to defend, their sovereignty and their status as a living man or a living woman. So when the Common Law Court was put together, there was a number of people involved, and they sat down and drafted a declaration for the Common Law Court, which is based on 2 or 3 previous documents that were used, but they took a lot of information from the Declaration of Arbroath in Scotland. So they put together this document for the Common Law Court, and it's been posted, and we've used that from day one. Unfortunately, the authorities, they've never actually been served with a copy of this. So what we wanted to do is, given the fact that they are failing to acknowledge our position and they're ignoring us, we've decided to formally serve them with a copy of this, how we have a notice of declaration. So the notice was served on these individuals, and there's a copy of that notice currently on the website. The premiers contacted, and the presidents or prime ministers, they are all given 30 days to respond to it. Now, the only reason they have 30 days is while we're confirming our position as a living man or a living woman and the rights associated with that, we're defending ourselves in the fact that they are not allowed to use statutory legislation against us. Now, we've adopted a position and agreed to stand together with people worldwide, which we're currently doing, and in doing so, we're entitled to adopt this position, but the state cannot turn around and forcibly use things like lockdown or statutory legislation or anything to prosecute us. They have no authority or jurisdiction to do so. There's no contract. But what we've done, because we wish to remain honourable, we've said to them, look, this is a position we've adopted, which we're entitled to do. However, should you believe that we're not entitled to adopt this position, you will give you 30 days to rebut this information. If they choose to do so, they may do so within the 30-day period, but what we'll then do is we'll then take them to a court and put them in front of a jury of living men and women who will then decide and rule on this issue. Realistically, I think it's very slim the chances are that they're going to try and rebut this, because they can't, because we are entitled to do what we're doing. We have an inherent right to do so. So if they don't rebut this, it means after the 30-day period, it's game, set and match, because all you need to do is show them a copy of the declaration from the Common Law Court. You then show them a copy of the letter that was sent to the appropriate Premier, Prime Minister, President, and the fact there's no rebuttal. It's already established your stance as a fact in law, and they cannot use statutory legislation against you, and it's unlawful to enforce this. So this is obviously the next step along the road to confirm what we're doing. I'd spoken earlier on with Brian just before we came on air. We're speaking about the paperwork that you are. They try to take you into their system, their place of business. They call them courts. They're not. Their place of business. It's corporations. That's all it is. But basically, it says when you go there, there is a possibility you can submit various documents and information to clarify your position. However, these documents are all lawful and they should be accepted. What you're finding out that the relevant authorities are refusing to accept it because they cannot enforce their own position with what we've done by way of affidavits and other paperwork. So what the state are doing are refusing to accept the documents, which they're not entitled to do. That in itself is a criminal offence. But it's only now that we're now dealing with this, we're going to ensure that these individuals know where they stand, and also if they fail to comply, they will now be prosecuted and held accountable personally. So this is the next step. And the documents we've put up, you can find, there's a full list of who's been served with the documents, and there's a copy of the document itself. It's on the Common Law Court website. Under the heading Community, and there's a subheading called Documentation. If you go on there, I believe it's in the category called Politics. So if you click on there, you'll see there's a couple of documents there. So you can see the stamped copy of the document that was served on them, and also a list of all the individuals who have been served with this document. Now, what we're looking to do, because there's been requests from many people, including Australia as well, who wish to take cases against individuals from the state who are committing crimes against the people. Now, some of them are actually involved with cases just now. So rather than obviously trying to defend it in their so-called courts, what we're doing is we're going to instigate cases against these individuals. Now, that may be judges, it may be police officers, it could be council employees, it could be people to do with forced vaccinations, it could be to deal with things like 5G, more fraudulent mortgages, the banks, anyone, solicitors, barristers. So the intention is to instigate court actions against these over the coming weeks. And we're hoping in the next 3 or 4 weeks to have possibly about 15 cases against individuals worldwide to address this crimes against the people. So this is the stage we're at just now, and we're hoping to move forward. So we'll be speaking to some of the people here today in the meeting to see obviously if there's anyone we wish to target, and we can assist with this as well. But we're doing this worldwide, so it's not just one state, it's literally right across the globe, and it's based on the same arguments. The fact that we are living men and women, they're committing crimes by using the statutory system against us, and they should be prosecuted accordingly. So this is what we're doing.
John, I'd like to ask you, when you say you've sent a letter to the premiers here in Australia and to the Prime Minister, what did you actually accuse them or something, or did you just tell them that you exist, or what was a quick story on that one?
So what we've done, well, basically what's happened is we've confirmed that the Common Law Court was established and that we have a declaration for the Common Law Court, which is effectively like one of the major documents, the equivalent of your Magna Carta and things like that. The Declaration of Independence of America. You've got the Declaration in Scotland of Arbroath. You'll have various other documents that are relevant to various countries as well, constitutions and things. Well, this is a similar document, but this one has actually been done with no state involvement, which we believe may be the only one. It's done by living men and women. Now, in this document, it actually confirms the position of living men and women and the fact that we will not be held accountable to the state or statutory law. Now, having done that, when we've set this up during the last year, what's happened is the statutory system are still committing crimes against the people. So what we've decided to say, well, look, hold on a minute. To be fair, we have this documentation which is up on the site. However, we've never actually formally served it on anyone. So they're committing crimes against the people, but they're unaware of this declaration. So what we've done is submitted a notice of this declaration. So we've served it on them to say that this is our adopted position. You therefore cannot prosecute us with statutory legislation. And despite the fact is that we've taken this approach, if you believe that we're not allowed to do so, we'll give you the right to challenge this, but you'll do so in front of a jury of your peers. So we've given them 30 days to respond, after which, if they fail to respond, it's taken through tacit agreement that this is actually a binding, it's a fact in law, that once you have given a declaration of your birth, that you will immediately be out with their system and they cannot then prosecute you.
Well, we've got no sound.
Anyone.
Right, yeah, have no sound. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry for late. Bit of a late night last night. I woke up and realised the time and panic, rush. I watched your video yesterday, John, the seminar you did about the Stone of Destiny and the meaning of the common law.
Has anybody got a quick question for John?
I've got a quick question, John. Great to see you again. Yep. Thanks for all of that information.
Likewise.
Fantastic. It's really great to be involved with a great group, and thanks to Barry for inviting me. Quickly, I've got 2 cases at the moment where I've got New South Wales Revenue chasing me. I've sent all the right letters. I've sent the 3rd default notice, and I still get the...
Would be. Basically says what you need to do just now is, because it's okay sitting and defending yourself with common law and using a common law court to do so. Unfortunately, the problem you have just now is within their place of business, they're going to try and issue an order against you, and they'll try to enforce it, which is what we'll have to deal with. So it says, given the fact that you are in Australia, a good way to do that is to challenge the authority and jurisdiction of the court. We have paperwork here that will allow you to do that. Now, according to their rules and their system, as soon as this has been challenged, they have to give you a hearing. Unfortunately, we've used this in many, many cases before, and they will never, ever give us a hearing, simply because it takes away all their control and their authority. But the point is, it is a point of law, so you challenge it there, and they cannot proceed against you. If they go ahead and they choose to, or they try to issue an order against you, we have the facility here to void that order immediately. So it doesn't matter what they do, one way or another we can do it. But depending on the parties you're dealing with, there is paperwork we can actually use to submit that beforehand. I wouldn't worry about it just now. If you want to have a chat, this is after this meeting, or someone, we can specify obviously the documents you need. We can assist with that as well and just submit them. You can actually, if you go back to court, there's no need to, but if you choose to go to court, you can have some fun in court as well. But it's not an issue, and it's something that you can deal with on your behalf.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. And have I got time for another quick question? Had a grueling day today at work. Being the 1st of May is the day, doomsday, for everybody to be vaccinated. We're being not allowed on site. Basically, all healthcare and aged care, hospitals, that sort of thing. And so it's basically take the vaccination, or you have to clear out, or we'll get another contractor. And that's 15 sites.
Right. Well, I've got some information from a couple of people today. I haven't checked it out yet, but I know it'll be okay. In relation to the vaccinations, the thing that when we're using this stance and we're taking on the relevant governments, we can do that. But the main issue that you need now is to let people know that when you're dealing with day-to-day problems just now, and it could be anything in life, not just a lockdown, anything to do with day-to-day life. When you have a problem with the state, the problem we have just now is that people are actually part of the state. Now, they have no option but to comply with the rules. Now, you say you've got various parliament and ministers and bodies that will help you. They won't. It's a statutory system. It's corporations. They're there for themselves to make profit. That's it. People don't matter, living men and women. The only way you can actually defend yourself against these crimes is by confirming that you are, in fact, a living man or a living woman. Now, if you do that individually, and I've tried it myself, when you go individually into a court, their so-called courts, and you try to say that you're a living man or woman, the judge looks at you, laughs, and then just turns away and carries on. The reason being is he's only taking on one individual. So you're standing up as one individual to take on a complete system that's hundreds of years behind them, a huge structure and money and power behind them, and you're one individual. You can't do that. But if you confirm that you exist under common law, that's completely different. Because although you're a living woman, there's no record of you, unless you've been onto the common law court site to confirm your standing. There's no record of you, because your records will be a driving license, a passport, national insurance card, your tax paperwork, your property, mortgage documents. All these documents are for the fiction. You don't exist under common law. The only thing that we're aware of that people obviously accept throughout the world is a declaration of your birth. So if you declare that you were born to the common law court site, you're then given a number. Now, the difference this makes is huge, because when you do that and stand in their so-called courts, when you turn around and tell the judge that you're then a living woman and that you have recorded a declaration with the common law court to do so, that immediately changes everything, and they then drop. So the judge then panics, because you have confirmed your position and you're standing there as a living woman, one individual. However, you're standing with the weight of the people behind you to support you. Now, what we've established in the courts in this country, even the Supreme Court, they will never, ever challenge the authority of the people directly. They will never do that. So as soon as you take on a stance and you stand with the people worldwide under common law, and you confirm that you're a living woman, as soon as that's done and you have a registered number, which is free of charge, you quote that reference number to them in their court of law, and then that changes everything. So the most important thing just now, we're moving forward, is getting people to record or submit a declaration of birth. The next thing after that is claiming the ownership of the fiction, the legal title attached to you. If that's the two most important things to do, and if you can get that, and this is what we do now, we've set this up, and we started off, I think I did tell some of you before, when we set this up, we set it up in Scotland, and it'll be 3 years on the 11th of June. That's a date, and we'll be 3 years to the day. Now we set that up, so we're not quite there yet. We're just coming up, but we set it up, and because the first court was convened in Scotland, we have to have a public record of the findings. So we set it up and called it, just put up a website and listed it as Scottish Common Law Court. As soon as we did that, we're contacted by all the English people saying, this is brilliant, we love this, it's really good. Can we use it? I said, of course you can. But it says Scottish Common Law Court. I said, no, that's where it was, but anyone can use it. Oh, okay then. So they've done that, but the people kept, over 2 or 3 months, they kept arguing about this point, and I got fed up answering phone calls. We changed it. So then became the Common Law Court Great Britain. So it was fine. So we'd done that, and then we get contact from people in Australia, America, Canada, everywhere. Can we use it as well, even in Europe? So we says, yes, of course you can. They says, yes, but it says Great Britain. So we changed it finally. We've agreed on Common Law Courts, Great Britain and International, so it covers everyone. So we've done that. But we have people now using this and confirming their stance by submitting a declaration of their birth and claiming the ownership of the fiction. We're now up at 101 countries. And again, on the site, there's a list of all the countries involved. But what we're doing now is sending out notices to the prominent countries that are involved just now to take this forward. And we're now taking on the politicians. So these notices went out yesterday. We've sent out some hard copies, some we've sent via email. because again, given the contacts that they have, we've had to send out someone, but they've all been served with them now anyway. So they've now got the 30 days to respond. But as I says, if you move forward just now, the cases that you're having within their so-called courts or places of business, you can deal with this just now. But what you need to do is deal with it as a group of people, living men and women. So that's the community, and this is where the declaration comes in. Yeah.
Dominic wants to ask you a question, and Alex is just turned up, which is good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I say.
Go ahead, Dom.
Right, John. Yeah. When you sign up then to the common law court, okay, so I love the idea of it and everything, and I'm actually going to do myself today and the family, all being well.
Yeah.
Get the card as well. I like that. I like the card. Smart.
Mm.
So you become the common law court, which is people. Well, I don't like the word people, but yeah, us. When you own the fiction, is there any comeback with that? With anything, you know, I know you own the fiction then, but is there anything that you should be wary of or anything by owning a fiction?
No, literally. Well, the simple answer is basically what they do. If you look at the fiction, the creation of the fiction, it was fraud. It's fraud committed against the people. Now, what we've done is we say, look, does the fiction exist? Well, yes, it does, because it's on all your documentation. Now, I think it was earlier on, it was pointed out, can you travel? This is with a common law court card instead of a passport thing. So we looked at questions. But the point is, the statutory system for day-to-day business use these documents. So the fiction does exist. So if you're going to say that it was created fraudulently, that in itself means that the state cannot use it because they're committing a crime. So if we establish that they're not allowed to lawfully use it, it still exists. So therefore, because it was created at your birth, who should obviously have ownership of it? Well, it should be the individual that was given the birth name. So therefore, providing you have declared that you are in fact a living man or a living woman with your common law court, once you've done that, you can then make the application for the fictitious name, confirming that you know it's created unlawfully and that you, as the superior, you having the superior claim, will submit an application for ownership. So when you fill out this form, you're then given it automatically because it was created at your birth. So you now have ownership of the fiction. Now, this doesn't change your day-to-day life because you actually can do anything you want. You can use the fiction. You can do what you want with it, but you own it. It's under your control. Now, if the state decide to try and prosecute you, which they did themselves, they took me to their so-called court and says, we're going to prosecute this fiction. I said, you can't. And they said, well, yes, you are Mr. John Smith. I said, no. I said, I'm a living man. I said, first and foremost, I'll confirm that with my certificate. I have a birth certificate issued from the common law court. It holds with it the authority of the people. Do you wish to challenge it? Where's this document? I said, it's in the production. So he looked at the document. He then put it to the side. He left it, so you couldn't challenge it. And he says, right, okay, we'll move on. I said, no, before you move on, you've no authority and there's no contract. He says, if you can't deal with a living man, the only issue you can deal with is that of the fiction. However, you can't, because I have ownership papers for the fiction here. It's presented as a production. So he looked at it, opened it up, looked at it, scanned over, it confirms that I own the fiction. So he says, unless you have a valid contract with me or consent or jurisdiction and authority, you cannot proceed. He says, I refuse to give you that. He says, however, to assist in this process and to make it easier for yourself, he says, what I will do is I will allow you, because I understand you may not have seen this before, I will allow you to challenge the ownership of this fiction. You have the ownership paper in front of you, bearing in mind it's been issued by a superior court and it carries with it the authority of the people. So I own the legal fiction. If you wish to challenge it, I'll allow you to do so. I will also allow the prosecutor to challenge it as well. He said, but the first thing you have to do now in this court is confirm to me how the fiction was created and who you believe owns it. At which point, it says the judge bowed his head and just left. The prosecutor sort of turned away and started scribbling notes. So I says, well, look, take it now, because you're not challenging this. He says, and I've confirmed that I have ownership papers. As now a fact in law, this is now recorded in this court, a court of record, that I own the legal fiction, and you therefore have no control.
in your seminar I watched yesterday, I think you mentioned that he can do you for not turning up at court because because you're not actually there because you're not dealing with a person, is he? So if you're declaring yourself as human flesh, there's no one for him to deal with like a mister. So he can actually do you for not actually turning up to court. Is there any?
We had a guy who turned up in court anyway. He said he stood and argued. And this is what they do in the UK. We had a judge. We've actually had a bit of fun. Some of the videos we've put up are actually quite good. There's a really good one about the legal fiction. But what happened is an individual had went into court in Scotland. Now, he'd been fighting for a couple of years. It was a mortgage dispute. But they were finally coming to an actual hearing for the dispute after 2.5 years of arguing. But this individual is very proud to be Scottish. I love the guy. He's great. He's been to the common law courts and he helps out because he is a living man. But according to the Declaration of Arbroath, it's a unique document because when it was created and it was accepted with the authority of the Crown and the Church. Now, what it does, unlike any other document in the world, it states clearly that anyone born in Scotland is born a sovereign and therefore cannot be held accountable to the state or under their control. This was because of the English at the time the dispute had, but that's a unique document we've got. Now, being Scots, this guy had turned round and stated, look, I'm a sovereign. They have no control over me. I will not accept it. So he stood in court and said that, and I says to the guy, I said, look, this will never work because even though you're a sovereign, when I pointed to Stephanie earlier on, you go as one individual, but you're taking on the whole system and the state. Now, you can't do that as one individual. If you go as one individual and you've recorded your birth and you recorded it by making a declaration that you are born, you're still sovereign, but you're standing with the people as a group. Now, when you go and you say, I'm a sovereign, I've declared my birth with the common law court, that immediately changes because the judge and the system are not taking on one individual, they're taking on the people, which they won't do. He didn't do that. Now, when he went and says, look, you are Mr. So-and-so, he says, well, no, I'm a living man. This is my sovereign. And he says, well, will you identify with the Mr., the subject? And he said, no, that's a corporation. I will not accept that. He says, you're trying to coerce me. And the judge then turned around and said, well, this is your final option. I'm not playing here. He says, you're either here or you're not. He says, you are either this legal fiction. If you accept the legal fiction, he says, that's fine. I need to know if you're here. If you refuse to do so, he says, I will issue a warrant for your arrest. To which point he says, well, what for? He says, well, non-appearance. He says, but I'm standing here in front of you. And he says, it doesn't matter. He says, I'll issue a warrant for your arrest. Are you Mr. So-and-so? And he said, well, no, I'm a living man. He says, right, I'm adjourning this for 10 minutes, but I'm hereby issuing a warrant for your arrest. I'll issue that. I'll allow you 10 minutes for the police to deal with this. I'll adjourn just now. So he went out. The police got onto radio immediately, and he got up and says, well, I'm walking out of the court. So he just went out. Now, they didn't chase him because they wanted the case to finish. They left it. But then after about 7 months, they came back and grabbed him at a weekend on a Friday night and threw him in jail for the weekend. So they're actually charging people. They will find them in contempt of court and they will throw them in jail just because they do not accept the position of a legal fiction within their courts. Now, they have no authority to do that, but this is what the judges do. And this is why you can't beat them in their own system. And even if you can prove, which we did, that they cannot prosecute me, in my case, they had to drop the charges against me, so I got a result. But the thing is, we need to hold these judges accountable, which is now what we're going to do in the coming weeks.
So the body removes the flaw in the law. So that's what should have been said. Anyway, after saying that, we'd like to welcome Alex, who has got home from the city, and he's sitting there rather patiently. Alex, you know, Dominic and everybody else.
My apologies, everyone. I got given a bum steer on trains.
It's power amongst the numbers, really. It's the mass of the people in the common court. Yeah. So it's a bit like, everyone needs to do it. And by everyone doing it, then we've got more power. And that's the bottom line of it, isn't it? So it needs to be...
When it comes... The messages that need to go out is that, look, you're fighting. It's not... if you look at the history, look through the history books, you've got things like various empires you've got things like the Greek Empire, Romans, you've Ottomans, you've basically, this is the Second World War, the Nazis.
Magna Carta,
you've got things like that. Yeah, you've basically got all this. These are all empires that's been set and established over a period of time. They fall by the wayside, a new one comes up, but they're all done through force. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, what you're doing now is you're not taking on a specified so-called country. What you're doing is you're now, as people, dealing with corruption. Now, the corruption is by the estate, the establishment, whether it's the crown, whether it's the statutory system, the parliament, the government, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a state. Now, this is applicable worldwide. He says that every area on this planet, this is race, colour, religion, it's applicable to everyone. Because everyone, effectively, when you're born sovereign. As soon as you're born, someone grabs you. They grab you with a birth certificate or with religion or whatever it is. They grab you. So you then fall into this community, into this following. You're in society, whether it be as an Australian or whether it's religious or a religion. It doesn't matter. Someone grabs you at birth, right?
That's right.
Everyone has a choice. Now, we're not actually saying, sorry?
Okay, so when you're born, you're actually born into a ward of state. Yeah, and it's a doc. It's all goes back to martial times.
Martial law. Yeah,
that's it. Because you got a doctor's docking. You got a judge who's in the top. He's the top box, and he's sat there. He's top of the ship. You know, it all goes back references to martial.
Well, the point being is what we do just now is this is the situation when you're born. Shortly after, someone grabs you, but the point being is at birth you're actually sovereign. Now, when you're sovereign, there you have the choice. At that age, you can't determine yourself, but you have the choice to turn around and say no. Now, while we don't accept their rules, because their rules are what they call laws, they're not. It should be even allowing for some of the methods that they have, the structures of the facilities, even the United Nations. There are clear documents there that state they cannot force you into their society, and that there's bans on slavery. Now, we done a video which is really good. It was in relation to the issue of the fiction. It's on the site, it's on the YouTube channel, which is quite good. It's to try and explain about the fiction. I don't know if anyone saw it, but what we've done is we set it up whereby, I don't know if you can recall, hopefully you may, in the 1970s there was a TV series called Roots. It was about slavery in America. Yeah. Now, what they did is the lead character was called Kunta Kinte.
Kinte.
But what happened is when he was sold off, the new slave owner had told him that you had to accept the new name, which was the slave name Toby. Now, he wouldn't do it, but what happened is we've shown a sketch whereby the slave was taken, strung up, and he was literally beaten within an inch of his life. And on it, it says, "What's your name?" And he says Kunta Kinte. The manager, whoever it was whipping him, beating him today. He said, "No, your name is Toby. Accept it. Your name is Toby." Eventually, the guy's nearly dead. He eventually accepted the name. Now, as soon as he accepted that, he then became the slave, and he's in their system. Now, this is exactly the same as the case that I've just confirmed happened in court in Scotland. What happened is the judge sat there and the judge says, "You will be Mr. So-and-so." In my case, "You will be Mr. John Smith." I said, "No, I won't. My name is John Smith. I'm a living man." They said, "No, you are Mr." I said, "No, I'm not." So therefore, what they will do is they're more subtle. They don't actually whip you, but what they do is they will punish you. Now, they'll throw you in jail for contempt of court. They'll try and fine you. They'll penalise you. And they'll bully you until you accept the fiction. As soon as you accept the fiction is Mr. John Smith. As soon as I accept that, I'm a slave. That's it. I abide by their rules. I wouldn't do that. And I got off because they couldn't enforce it. But this is what happened in the video. So we put that video up. It's on the YouTube channel to see it. And it shows you clearly the distinction. So providing you stand as a living man or a living woman, they cannot touch you with our rules and regulations. So what you need to get out just now is confirm whichever belief anyone has or wherever you are in the world, the people have a right to stand as living men and living women and not to be prosecuted by the state. Providing
John,
you stand together, that
John,
gives you the fourth. Yeah.
Can I get some clarity, just mainly for my sake here? Is that you're born as a living entity. There is nothing wrong with them creating a fictitious name.
No.
The crime is in them joindering or attempting to joinder you to that name. Is that correct?
Well, no, there's two. The argument is they can create a fictitious name if they want. It's like creating a company, and they can do what they want.
Because they create that entity, they have copyright over that entity that they've created. So if they have the copyright because they've created it, how do then we claim the fictitious ownership of something that they've created?
Right. First of all, I said this is where it becomes good. So I love their legislation. I said it's all bollocks, excuse my French, but I love it. Basically what they say is right, we have a child here who's just been born. We're going to have that. That's a new slave. We're going to make money. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to create a certificate. So we're going to create a birth certificate, and we wish to make it official, so we're going to copyright it. So it's our certificate. We own the fiction. Now, we need to make money, so what we have to do is we have to take this fiction and attach it to the child. Yep. So we'll tell the child that's what they own, and that's what they do. So all the way through your life, you're attached to the fiction. That is a criminal offence of criminal coercion. It's a crime. Right? So they're committing a crime. But not only that, what they've done from day one is fraud. It's fraudulent. Because basically it says they're doing something, no knowledge of this at all. And if we look at the rules regarding this sort of thing,
there was no full disclosure.
Yeah. Well, when we look at their rules just now, when we try to basically get it down into a neat package, we say, well, what is actually happening? Well, what's happening is you have a child, you have the parents, and you have the government or the state. So therefore, there's more than one party involved. So according to their rules, it's contract law. Now, for contract law, which it is, for a contract to be valid, there has to be various things, including full disclosure. Now, you can go on about contract and argue various points of contract. You only need one point. Was there full disclosure? No. You weren't told. Your parents weren't told. That's the end of it.
So, John, what I'm getting from that is that because their creation of that title was fraudulent, it has no copyright. It has no standing, no copyright, and therefore you are able to claim it.
It also goes back to what is known in their system as a unilateral mistake.
Yes.
And a unilateral mistake is you were never given full disclosure, so that they recognize a unilateral mistake. So on that alone, you can break that contract.
No, that's a good fine point for me. Thanks, John. You've given me good clarity on that.
Well, the point you try and get here, try and stay away from their rules and their things and their system. Just say, look, at the first point when this was created, they committed a crime of fraud. He says it was to do with unfull disclosure, and therefore it's fraudulent, and that's it. Now, that then, the Crown copyright document that have the birth certificate is a fraudulent document. It's void. It doesn't exist. Because basically it was created fraudulently, so it's null and void. And therefore, because they've attached onto various documents, like birth certificate, driving license, passport, bank cards, and so on, they've used that in commerce. It still exists. Well, if you need it to function daily, why would you want to get rid of it? It doesn't make any difference. If it's there and it makes your life easier, use it. But you're in control. So what you do is you say, right, okay, you've created fraudulently, and we'll go back to them and say, right, if something is fraudulent, this contract, what is the situation? Well, the state turn around and say, well, if it's fraudulent, it's void. And if it's void, it means that they have no control over the legal fiction. So they've no ownership over it. They've no entitlement. Now, if it exists and it's still floating about, who should obtain ownership? Well, it should be the individual that was given the birth name. Yeah. So therefore, you can apply. You're not given. It's not given straight away. If you want to obtain the legal title, you have to submit an application. So you submit it to the people, the common law court, which is yourself. And in that declaration, you're saying, I'm claiming the legal fiction here attached at the top of this form because I'm the living man or woman underneath, and you put your name underneath. And then you're automatically given ownership. Because it was your name. And as soon as you take that, it voids everything they've got, and it means that they cannot, without your consent, they cannot enforce any legislation against you.
I filed an injunction against them seizing my car, which they haven't done yet, but they're planning on doing it on Monday. And so I filed an injunction saying that the paperwork was counterfeit, illegitimate, all of that sort of stuff. And of course, I signed the application, Lord Trevor John. And they rang me today to say that they were hearing the matter in court today. And I said, well, I can't be there. I'm 100 miles away. So they rang me up again an hour and a half later, and the magistrate got on the phone and he said, are you Trevor Alexander? And I said, well, that's a deceased estate, but I'm the executor of that estate. And he kept going on, and I said, well, I'm the person who applied for this injunction. I'm the owner of the vehicle, Lord Trevor John. I'm the one who applied. And he said, are you Trevor John? And I said, no, you're wanting to talk to a deceased estate. No, he said, well, when did it die? I said, it was created as a dead estate. I said, and I'm the one who's making the application. Well, he finished up, he said, I'm dismissing the application because you're not Trevor Alexander, who is the registered operator. I said, well, the registered operator is a deceased estate. I said, I'm the applicant. No, dismissing it. So he would not allow me, as the person who applied, as the living man who had applied, to have my say. And he just dismissed the whole thing, which of course means that the police can still turn up because they'll say, well, your application was dismissed. But he was acting absolutely, completely unlawful.
Well, this is the point I was trying to make earlier on. It says, if you use things just now, what we are doing is lawful. You can do this. However, because it doesn't fit in with their system, they cannot concede any ground. So they will do everything, including committing crimes, to assist their system. Now, that in itself is okay, but you need to challenge them. So the thing to do immediately is put in paperwork and challenge the decision. So the decision he gave today, right? If he's given a decision today, if we can get that in writing, contact the court and say, look, I would like this confirmation of the decision in writing. And then what to do is, as soon as it comes back, if you've got the court name, the judge's name, and basically the reference number for the hearing as well, which you'll have in your paperwork, what he would do is void the decision. So I can void the decision for you. So effectively, the decision he made today is no longer applicable, it's void. So we can do that straight away. Now, the reason we can do that is that he has not listened to you as a living man. He's used criminal coercion against you. He's used illegal title against you. He's used fraud against you. He's failed to respect the authority of the people and the documentation you have, which is lawful documents issued by a common law court. So all these things are applicable, and he confirms that he's committed crimes. So therefore, under the rules for voiding orders, providing when the order was given, there is a fundamental flaw, you're allowed to void it. Now, you can void it because he has failed to address the issue of the living man in your position, which means you can void it straight away. Now, we've put in about 30 or 40 of these orders, and the first ones went in on the 31st of December, and we've even put them into the High Court. Now, every one we've put in still stands. We've voided them. They can't do anything.
Can you also then rule on the injunction that the paperwork was concerning about, or is it just on his?
Well, basically, are you speaking about the one that you set up, the injunction?
Yeah, I filed for an injunction to prevent them from seizing my car.
Well, that's fine. Well, that exists. You can actually refer to that as well. If you can say to them as part of your evidence, they obviously submitted an injunction as well, which has been ignored. You have no authority to do so. This has obviously been issued by a living man, which is superior to your position. And the fact you failed to comply with this or acknowledge this is you're committing a crime. But what we've done is this void order, we were told I got it through a third party, it was through a retired barrister. Now, there was a decision made by the court, and it was obviously a bad decision. But what he had says will void the decision. He'd been retired. The guy says to the barrister, well, how can you void it? He said, well, the terminology is if there was a substantial flaw or error made when they established the order, he says, you can void it. Now, if you look at the system, you will never get a barrister or a QC or someone or a solicitor within the existing system will void a judge's decision, because they'll get hung, drawn and quartered and they'll lose their license and the judges will go for it. So they won't do that, which is why nobody uses it. Now, the other thing is, if you had someone brave enough to say, I'm going to challenge a judge and void the decision, what they do is they put forward a statutory argument, because that's what they use. As soon as you put in a statutory argument, the judge has the authority to overrule it and cancel it out. So therefore, if you put in a void order and you use a statutory argument, it's going to fail.
Yep.
But for the first time ever, we've changed it, because what we do is we put in a void order, but the void order has addressed the fundamental flaw that they have failed to acknowledge your position as a living man, and they're using crimes against you by way of criminal coercion. So the only way that they can challenge the void order is by dealing with the issue of the legal fiction, who owns it, in criminal coercion and the crimes that they're committing. So they'll never do it.
So if I get some paperwork to you, they won't give it to me until Monday at the earliest.
Yeah.
But if I get that to you with a copy of the injunction that I filed, and here's the interesting thing too, is I not only filed it in the magistrate's court, but I filed exactly the same injunction in the county court. And the magistrate heard it today, but it's, according to me, it's still live in the county court.
Well, the other thing I would say as well is, when he spoke to you today and he asked you who you are, I could say, well, that's fine, but bearing in mind I'm speaking on the telephone just now, he says, who are you? And then see what he says. And regardless of what he says, well, fine, the telephone is not the correct means to deal with this.
Yes.
However, he says, given the fact you are discussing that just now, I will let you know, regardless of who you are or who you believe you are, you have no authority and jurisdiction. So therefore, this will be challenged immediately. He says, in any decision you made, having been informed of this, any decision you made is irrelevant because it's void. He says,
I didn't even get a chance to do that. He just hung up straight away.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. We'll void his decision and thank him.
Yep.
Okay.
But you can do that. I'll help you with that. So there's no one individual targeted for special appearance or special privileges. Basically, the common law court is the people internationally.
My concern is,
now, when you achieve a result, you then put that ticket off the box, save that, and then use that. So it's a building block. You then move on to the next one. So we've established, the people have established here a common law court. Now, we've established this and it's been set up, and it's the same with Australia. When the judicial system was set up in Australia, and basically all you've ever known really is a judicial system which is run by the government or the Crown. So it says that both parties involved. So that's fine, but you've never actually had anything else. Now that's different, because you actually have a common law court. Now, the common law court has nothing to do with the state, nothing to do with the Crown. The common law court is you, the people, men and women, and that's it. Now you have that. We actually have, from the courts in the UK, including the Supreme Court, we actually have in a written court decision confirmation that the common law courts exist, that we convene our own courts, we issue our own orders, and we issue our own summonses, and it's separate from their system. And the judge says, while it exists, we do not comply with that because it has no relevance to us. Well, that's fine. Well, it wouldn't, because they're corporations and they deal with statutes. But the point is, what they're missing is that if there are two conflicting decisions, a statutory decision and a common law decision, they cannot then just turn around and use force and say, well, we're going to do what we want. They can't do that. If there's two conflicting decisions, what has to happen is the superiority or the superior decision has to be established. So then it has to be looked at by the people, because it's only the people who can do that. So this is the stage we're at just now. Now, we get the information out just now. So when you talk about the common law court, it's always the people. You cannot have a common law court with one individual, because first of all, you need a jury of 12. Now, if you only have 12 people, you can't have a jury anyway, because it's just 12 people. There's nobody else a choice. So what we do is we say, look, all we need is a minimum of 100 people to stand together, to state that we stand together under this process and stand together, and we can take on the state. We have thousands do that now. But the declaration that was set was based on the Declaration of Arbroath. It was accepted by the state, the Crown, and even the Church. that if you have 100 people, you can do this, which is why we've established the common law court. It can never be challenged, and nobody has challenged us. But it's the people. So when you do that, it is always the people. It's not an individual. I convened the first common law court, but I brought a case to the people. It was the people that were a court, not me. I was one individual taking a case to the court, but the actual jury sat there. They were the court. They were the people. And it's the same with the international one.
John, just talking in terms of bringing cases, we have quite a number of people now who are wanting to file cases, and I'm very concerned about you being flooded from down under with stuff. So how would you like it handled?
Well, what I would say just now, we've served paperwork on the various premiers, prime ministers, presidents, and things like that. We've just served documentation. So we've given them 30 days. But what we're going to do is we're now going to instigate cases against them. Now, the cases we're going to do, we're not actually going to take a common law court case. Well, technically it is. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the existing courts, right? As in their courts. It's owned by us. We own the buildings. But we're going to notify them that we're challenging them in their own courts. So we're going to submit common law paperwork and demand a hearing, and we're going to prosecute individuals. Now, the individuals we're going to prosecute are judges, police officers, council employees, various commercial CEOs, people who do with 5G, the health implications for vaccinations. We're going to prosecute upwards of 50 cases throughout the world, and we're going to instigate this in a matter of weeks. But if we do that, what we're looking to do is take maybe 4, 5, 6 cases in each area. We've got numerous in the UK just now that we're setting up. Now, if you have people in Australia that say, look, we have really important issues here. Now, I'm aware you've got your separate states, but if you have issues that you're dealing with and you wish to address that will have an impact throughout the whole of Australia, you can say, look, this is what we want to do. We'd like to prosecute this individual. This is what we want to do. This is the reasoning behind it. Then what we'll do is work with you and we'll help you prepare it, and we can actually take them on. So if you want to select a number of cases to do that in Australia just now, we'll help you prepare this, and we'll work with you to do it. And then we're going to take on the state right across the world. Great.
You were talking about the declarations and things that you were preparing. Have you served papers on people in Australia?
Yeah. Well, they went. Before you came in, it was pointed out at the beginning of the meeting. These papers have been served. There is a copy of the document that's served. In fact, I don't know if it might be easier just to show you. Can I actually share my screen here just to show you? Yeah. Come down to documentation, and you click documentation. When you do that, it takes you to the document page. Now, once you do that, there's various categories. If you click on to category 6, which is politics, click here. There's documents available. Should be there, won't it? Right. Why is it not working? There we go. So there's documents here. The documents you want is the second one, notice of declaration. If you click here, it gives you then the declaration. So this is what's served. It tells you here it's basically issued to the world leaders and heads of state. It gives you a copy of the declaration, and it basically tells you that they have to respond to it. At the bottom, you've got the 2 embossed seals for Great Britain and international for the Common Law Court. So this letter went out, and they have been served to everyone. Now, what I'm going to do is if I go back into that politics issue, here we go. The one beneath, it says here, state served notice. If you click there, what this document will do is give you a copy of everyone that was served with this. Now, we've done them alphabetically, so Australia's top of the list. So we've served Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister. We've then done all the categories. So you've got Western Australia, Northern Territory, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania.
I think so that this is going to make a lot of people in the freedom movement in Australia very, very happy.
Yes, it will.
Right, well, we've done that. They have been served, and I've got acknowledged emails back from them as well saying they've had that. We've also done Canada, for example, there's the Canadian ones as well, starting with the Prime Minister, and that's all the states there. We come down, you've then got Great Britain, which includes the Isle of Man, because it's a separate entity. So we've got that, and then you've got New Zealand. We've done the Republic of Ireland, and then you've got the United States. Now, in the United States, they have senators, but they have 2 senators for each state, 50 states. So there's actually 100 senators that's been served with this in America. So they actually went to, they've all been served with these documents. So they have 30 days to respond. Now, bearing in mind, if I just come back to Zoom, see the thing, I'll stop here. Yeah, basically, with what we have, we've given them 30 days, and we've actually stated to them, look, we have a right to establish this system and stand together. So we've done this and established a common law court, both for Great Britain and internationally. The people stand together, and you cannot apply any statutory legislation or enforce that against us once we've confirmed our standing with our birth, the Declaration of Birth. So that's it. Now, because that is a fact in law, we've actually established that, and that document, superior document, is issued by the people as superior authority. So the declaration is there. If they want, because we're honourable, and we always remain honourable, we've said to them, you may disagree with it, so therefore we will allow you to challenge us. But if you challenge us, you have to obviously explain why we're not allowed to do what we're doing. It's impossible, because we are allowed to do what we're allowed to do. They cannot enforce you. Even the legislation that they use themselves, which doesn't apply to us, with the things like the United Nations, they actually say that you're allowed to, obviously, it says hold any meetings, you can work together in groups, you don't have to be part of the state. And the fact that the state are using fictions against you is also a form of slavery, which is banned within their own system. So the point is, if they wish to challenge us, what we've actually said is they would have to challenge all the points that we're raising, but they would have to do in front of a jury of 12 of their peers, which is living men and women. So you would actually appear in front of a common law court effectively and let the people rule on it. So you have their system and our system, and basically why they're trying to enforce their system on us. They can't do it. They won't get away with it. So it's never going to be challenged. And then at the end of the 30 days, when that's up, all we need to do, for example, with the court you were dealing with earlier on, Alex, you turn around and give them a copy of the declaration from the Common Law Court, say, I've established my position, here is the documentation confirming my position, and here is a copy of the letter, a notice that was served on the Premier of the state. He says, so that went off to the state leader. They were given 30 days. They failed to rebut or challenge anything. Therefore, you cannot enforce any statutory legislation against me. And if you do so, it says you will be held personally liable and accountable to the people. So
that is such a beautiful and simple solution for everyone in this country and for other countries as well. So how many days have you got to tick off?
Well, it was only 2 days ago, so basically it's just counting down. So the point is, what we're away to do, we're not waiting the 30 days. What I'm hoping to do in 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to serve court papers on all the authorities. So, for example, if we have, with all the people we have, we've got, including all the states we have, you could probably get about 140 states with the ones I've just shown you. If we take, say, 25 states, maybe even 20 states, if we average 2 or 3 cases a state, that would give you over 50 straight away. Now, I know, for example, as I speak to many people in England, I can, top of my head, just now say there's at least 8 or 9 in huge cases that we do. Now, we don't want to turn around and take them all and put them in one country. And similarly, we don't want to prosecute, if we're having 50 cases, we don't want to prosecute 50 judges, because it doesn't deal with all the relevant issues. So what we want to do is hit them across the board. So you're going to hit them in different states all over the world. Now, you're also going to hit them on things like judges. So judges, you've got magistrates, you have police, you have councils, you have licensing authorities, you have issues regarding the lockdown, you've got 5G issues, you've got vaccinations, which is the healthcare industry, you've got issues with children being removed by the state, you've got vehicles, so all these things. So you can actually target cases. Now, I've just give you about 10 categories. So these 10 categories, if we're going to try 10-ish, to say 50 cases, and we've got 10 categories, that would allow us to prosecute 5 people in each category. So if we want to prosecute judges, we'll say, well, we'll pick 5. But what we're going to do is we're not going to have them in one country. We're going to have them in 5 different states. So we've got one. I'm doing one in Scotland, so we'll have one in Scotland. You can have one in England. You can have one in Australia if you want. You can have one anywhere. It can be in the States, any of the states or all of the states. You can do it. But if we split them up there, then what you can do is you can take on the issue of 5G. You can take on the issue of vaccinations. You can take on the issue of cars, vehicles, courts, councils, taxes, HML, I don't know, IRS, whatever the system you've got up there. You can address these issues here and we'll instigate a case against these people. But it's done only with a common law argument, because you're not going into the system and starting to refer to statute legislation and what they're doing wrong and where they've done it. You just really, we couldn't care less about that. You're committing a crime under common law, under natural law, under God's law. You're failing to recognise a living man or woman. You're using criminal coercion. We own the fiction. We have established a court. So these are the arguments you put in. And it's all based on common law and it's got nothing to do with them. So this will be done in 2 to 3 weeks' time. We're going to start putting these cases in. Now, if you do one, for example, I have a great one, because in Queensland, we're having a laugh about Queensland earlier on, but basically how things work. Queensland were great because actually Queensland were going to deal with an issue regarding a mother and children, and they weren't going to give permanent residency order because the mother didn't have a birth certificate for her children. Now, she spoke to the common law court and got her certificates for children under common law. That was presented to the Queensland authorities. The Queensland authorities thanked her for the documentation, accepted it, and granted permanent residency for the mother and her 2 children, based only on a common law birth certificate. Now, therefore, that's been accepted as a statute. It's a fact in law now, as done with the common law court documents. Now, we can turn around and say to any other country that these are lawful documents, and the Australian government, the Queensland government have established that. They proved that. We've done it in the UK as well. So things that we can do. But if you take on a judge, say in somewhere in the UK, and you take in one in Canada or something like that, if the Canadians allow us to put forward our argument in our case and they allow us to deal with it, and we prosecute a judge in their system, if the British or obviously the Australians turn around and say we're not allowing that, that just shows you how corrupt they are, because they're doing it in other countries which do wish to act lawfully and support the people. So we're playing the governments off against one another. So unless all the governments worldwide stand together and adopt the same approach, you're going to divide them all.
Yeah.
Because they're all doing different things. So you can create panic within their own system. So this is what we're trying to do. So we need these cases. We'll conduct the cases. We'll let you know what to do. We'll do the paperwork for you. And it's simple. It's really simple things. It's about we need to instigate these cases. And if we do that, we can put up on the website that we're covering this right across the world. So it's not as if you create a movement in a state in Australia. You were mentioning Queensland. You can do it in Queensland. So Queensland's isolated and nobody else is doing anything. That's not the case, because if you do something in Queensland, that's been replicated throughout Australia, America, Canada, New Zealand, the UK. We've actually got, we might do some in Europe as well. We've got quite a few countries in Europe. Yesterday, we had, I looked today, I haven't even looked today, we have an average about 15 to 20 people sign up daily, and they could be from anywhere. They actually make a declaration of their birth. So I had went on and I was speaking to someone, and I'd made a few points earlier on about what we're doing, and then within about 7 or 8 hours, I went back onto the website and with 74 applications. Oh, no, the common law court is the people. And he said, well, I disagree with that. I said, fine. Does that mean you wish to challenge the authority of the people? No. They can't do it. They cannot challenge the people. He said, they won't do it. They'll never do it. And that's the thing, but it's only when you stand together.
John?
Yeah, I see Dominic waving.
Yeah. John, you know, when you upload your picture on your websites for your ID card, is there any specific background or anything that you require?
Preferably if we can get it against a clear background. Obviously, we take it. It's at the end of the day, it's not the state. As long as we can identify an individual and it's a clear picture, that's okay. If we get it against a plain background, it's better. but we're not obviously we're not picking them. It's not obviously like the statutory system. Yeah, look, it's common law. As long as we can see you, that's enough.
Okay,
Yeah?
I'll sort my picture out later then.
Yeah.
Make sure you put some eyeshadow on, Dominic. Make sure you.
I was going to say, if you,
Start yourself up
the only stipulation when you're sending a photo, it has to be a photo of you.
Okay. Well, cheers for that.
Alex, is there anything you need to clear up from last night's meeting while John's here?
John, I sent you through a copy of a video that has come out, and there's been some people digging into the origins of Australia, and it came up at our meeting as to this terminology as to, you know, what we do to stay outside of their system, because their system created the name Australia, but the land was known as Terra Australis before they came here. And we just want to make sure that we don't have any way that they can put any claim, because they've claimed Australia as Lord Howe Island. And we want to make sure that, you know, in our references that we don't leave a door open for them. So what's your recommendation? Did you get a chance to see the video?
I haven't actually saw that one. When did you send it?
Yesterday, not or something.
No, I haven't. No, I'm catching up on documents. I haven't had time in the last day or so. I've got a few emails.
Yeah, basically, in a nutshell, what happened is when they arrived here, the continent was already occupied.
Yeah.
So under terra nullius, they couldn't claim it. So they had to claim an offshore island, and they're running everything from the offshore island.
Yeah. It's says when you speak to people about this and people get involved, they said they get weighed down because they keep referring to the existing system and how it affects the state and what they'll believe. As far as I'm concerned, I don't give two stuffs about the state. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You make your stance. You decide what you want to do. So if the people in Australia turn around and make a stance and say, look, this is where we are, that's it. The use of the name or the terminology, it doesn't make any difference, as long as you, as a group, accept the true meaning, and that's it. Because everything they do is fraudulent anyway. So it doesn't matter. And if they refer to Australia, they're referring to a corporation anyway. It's not relevant to living men and women. So it's fine. You just establish your standing. Yeah. You establish your standing as living man and living woman, and that's it. Forget their terminology, forget their rules. Occasionally, it's nice to twist it and just obviously remind them of some of the rules. But you don't. You just ignore it. It has no relevance at all.
It's just a geographical location. That's basically what.
Yeah, we've got people who are asking questions, and
answer them.
You know, we want to get good, clear answers to them so that they can feel comfortable in us moving forward.
It is
the main thing is not. The main thing is not to get wound up in their system. It says forget the terminology. It says it's all about threats and intimidation and corporations and contracts. It says if you don't accept what they're doing is lawful, well, none of it's applicable, so why worry about it? Just forget it. Forget about them. Let them do whatever they want. You hold them accountable at the appropriate time. You deal with issues as living men and women. That's it. It says you're only complicating issues if you're going back to their system to try and address or overcome some of their issues. Let them do what they want. You'll prove your case and you'll prove that what they're doing is criminal and you'll deal with that accordingly. Let them do whatever they want.
I'd like to thank John from the UK for coming all this way to Australia by air. And everybody for participating in the meeting. Dominic, we got Brian. Hi, Dominic, Alex, and Stephanie up in New South Wales. We got everybody's here. We're in the next few months, with the help of John, the Common Law Court will be up and running here with the People's Court, and with the help of everybody together, we will start making a change. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.